had a class, National University's ILR 260 research writing class. This is your humble instructor, Rex Thompson, and I'm going to be posting this in announcements. Make sure you watch it, and maybe it'll save you some grief. This is week 3, and the important takeaway this week is the rough draft that you're working on right now. Hopefully, you've all got your topics chosen and they all meet the requirements. I see that some of you chose some topics that weren't on the list. That's fine, as long as they have a technology aspect to them. The topics. So I'm going to tell you some things that you'll need to know for your final paper and this rough draft. And remember, that's the key to this. It's called a rough draft. It does not need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be finished. This is not the finished paper. I don't expect you to have a conclusion, but I do expect you to adhere to some of the formatting issues, like APA formatting. You need to have that. If you're an English major, humanities major, it's okay to do MLA, but you need to tell me that. Send me an email or a text, and you know how to get a hold of me. Because then when I see it in MLA, I won't grade you down for it because you've told me about it. But if not, it's all APA. And it's pretty simple. You can Google APA. There's a million sites. There's a million tutorials. Hopefully you already know it, perhaps from other classes. But to give you a brief rundown on it, and this is just some of the highlights of APA, is it's always double spaced. It's always New Times Roman font 12 font. It's always 1-inch margins all the way around the page. Always has a running header, and in the running header you have the title of your paper and your page number on every page, except for the title page. Now, you don't have to have a title page on this short paper. It's up to you if you want to use one. You won't be graded down if you have a title page, but you won't be disgraded if you don't have. You won't be graded down if you have a title page, but you won't be disgraded if you don't have one. You don't need nobody's asked me this, so I assume maybe nobody will do it, but you don't need to have a abstract, opening abstract where you discuss what you're going to write the paper about. Those are mostly for longer papers, not 3 or 4 page papers. We don't need that. Get rid of it. If I see it, you won't lose points, but you don't need it. Just start right in with the page. What's the paper going to be about? You're going to take the reader on this journey. And in that thesis statement, which is the first opening or 2 paragraphs, you will state the topic question clearly and concisely. Do not keep the reader in the dark of what your paper is going to be about. Don't have them discover it. You make it clear to them in the very beginning. And it's not just in the title of your paper. Don't just depend on that. And when you have your title for your paper, if you have a long title, shorten it down for that running header. Remember, we just did this exercise this week. I just graded it, so I know, where you had to choose key phrases or words in your topic question. That's what the title should be. Just key words. You don't need the whole title. If you have a long title, don't put it in the header. It makes it look really unprofessional, and you don't want that. If I don't see that in the draft, None of this stuff is going to lose you points. It will lose you points in the final paper, but not in this rough draft, because that's why it's a rough draft. You're supposed to make mistakes. It's okay. Everybody usually does well in the rough draft unless it's a complete disaster, unless I don't see any progress or any hope, then you will lose points. So anyway, here's what I don't want. Do not use the first person. Do not use I. Don't say, well, I don't believe that online learning is the future. Okay, that's great for you. It's not an opinion piece. If you use your own personal opinion, it's going to slant the paper. It's going to bias the paper. And you're not doing that. You're going to do a research paper that presents both sides or whatever your topic is in a fair and balanced way. If you start saying I, it's an opinion piece, like an editorial, and you will lose points, especially on that final paper. You will lose points for that. Keep I out of it. If you have, it's okay to tell a personal story, but you have to couch it in the third person. And that's where creativity comes in when he's writing these papers. You can tell a story. If you have a story about cyberbullying of one of your children, you could do it in the third person. That's fine. But when you start saying I, it immediately biases the paper and it renders it moot. Now it's an opinion piece, and the reader doesn't need to read any further because they know where you stand on it. Remember, you're writing for a reader. You're writing for an audience. Now, normally the audience is just me or, another professor. But in this case, an audience is your fellow peers. You're going to be posting this draft online this week, and you're going to be able to see other people's drafts, rough draft, by the way, and you'll be able to make helpful, and that's the key to this, helpful comments. Criticism is great if it's constructive. If it's negative or hurtful, don't do it. How would you like to get that kind of criticism? I don't think you would. Always treat everybody in the class how you expected to be treated, how you deserve to be treated, and everybody deserves the same treatment. Nobody deserves to get their their feelings hurt. And a lot of times, so in your constructive criticism, don't just say how great everything is, because if there's a flaw, there's things there, you could bring that up. Say, you might want to check this out. That doesn't look quite right to me. That's fine. That helps them, and it helps you, because when people comment on your paper, they might see some flaws that they can help with. Just don't rely on me to make all the comments and to make everything great. Your fellow students are there. You're all in this thing together. You're all writing at the same level, I hope. And so that helps to come from other people in the class, not just your instructor. Because you may think we know it all. We don't. We make mistakes. We do. Not that I make a mistake ever, but anyway. Like I say, no need for a conclusion, but it's okay if it's in there. That's all right. If you don't have the whole paper done, just show sampling of the paper. That's all you need for this rough draft. Also, reliable sources is key to this whole paper and the rough draft. And reliability of the sources makes your paper reliable. And that's what you're trying. Stay away from bloggers. Stay away from Wikipedia. Stay away from no named authors. Like if you find a piece that doesn't cite an author's name, walk away from it. Introduce the quote source by saying, John Smith from Newsweek magazine recently submitted this article about global warming, whatever the topic is. Okay, so that gives classic newsworthy magazine, and that helps a lot. If you don't introduce those points on the final paper, you need to find some credentials on the sources and why are they experts in this whatever field. They prove it. And it has to be more than they wrote an article, because all sorts of people can write articles. That's why the peer-reviewed journal kind of comes in handy, because it's been reviewed by expert peers. And if they're perfect, no. We could get close, though. Reliability is everything. Okay? And an unnamed source is not reliable. Don't use them. Well, I will on the final paper. But I'll talk about the final paper next week. I want you guys to have two sources. If you have one source and you quote it several times, your paper's slant. It might be a great source. That makes it really reliable. And it's not. That makes it two opposing sources that have possibly different opinions. Remember, you're not providing an answer. An open forum, think for people who want to think it through on their own. And when you draw your conclusion, that's what it is. It concludes because the answer changes all the time. Technology, as you well know, changes sometimes daily. And so you might have the answer for cyberbullying, software and other hardware that wasn't there the day. If you provide an answer about cyberbullying or climate change or so there's no definitive answer on this stuff, because